The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to get some kind of a flash drive or an SD card or some kind of a CD. Let's keep it simple. Say it's a flash drive, okay? Then you're going to come here, linuxmint.com, okay? Just type that into your browser. You come to this page right here, okay? Then you come up here, downloads. You want to go over to LMDE 6. There's nothing wrong with Linux Mint 21.3. However, for the installation steps and for just being able to install it on our machine, I would say use LMDE 6. So we're going to click on that. Here we are. Say download. And you're going to be able to follow the instructions. Basically, what it's going to tell you is to use one of these links. They're all fine. There's places like Harvard, if you trust schools. They have like Harvard, they have like Princeton, they have like Purdue. Very trustworthy names, right? You could use those. Those are perfectly fine. But we're going to go ahead and download an ISO image from one of those, okay? So I'm currently running Linux right now, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to show you this. But we're going to yoink the one from Harvard, okay? So meanwhile, while it's doing that, we're going to do a new tab, and we're going to type in Balena Etcher. We're going to go to etcher.balena.io. Here we are. That's the URL. And you're going to say download Etcher. You're going to download it for Windows probably. So obviously I'm using Linux. I haven't used the Etcher for Linux, but we're going to see what that does. And I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so basically what's happened is Linux does not want to use Balena Etcher. The reason is because it has its own Etcher in-house. It's a very powerful program. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to plug in your flash drive to your computer. You're going to go to Balena Etcher. It's going to give you prompts to select the ISO file that you downloaded and select the flash drive. And once you do that, you're going to be able to flash that ISO file onto the flash drive. It's actually going to create an operating system on your little flash drive. Now, something to keep in mind, don't use a removable device that has important information on it. Make sure that you get that information off ahead of time. The reason is when it goes through this process, it's just going to wipe out that data. Okay. You can use it as a normal flash drive after, but before and during this process of flashing the drive, you need to make sure that there's nothing important on that drive, or you need to make sure that it's a redundancy. So let me see if I can find us a graphic of how to enter the BIOS. Okay, so for now, I can't even find graphics of how to enter the BIOS. Basically, follow other people's advice, okay? There's going to be a button you press when you turn on your computer before anything happens. Like, so for example, I have a Dell. I'm going to mash F12. If I had a Lenovo, I would mash F1. I don't know what the Mac one is. Just look that up. They're going to tell you. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to install Linux Mint onto this operating system, okay? Use the installer. This is the installer. We're going to say, let's go. We're going to use LMDE 6, okay? I do not want you using the Ubuntu, although the Ubuntu is a little bit easier. The Ubuntu is going to create a lot of problems with strange architectures, which a surprising number of computers have different types of architecture that Ubuntu is not going to like, and it's not going to let you install it on it, okay? LMDE 6 will install on basically anything. It's not going to complain about it. Nothing. It doesn't care. Okay. So we're going to say, let's go. Okay. You're going to select your language and your country. There it is. I speak English, by the way. I could say UK English. I don't care. But that's going to mess with my keyboard. So there it is. Good guess. It doesn't matter. So here's your keyboard. If you have an exotic keyboard, you're going to be able to come over here and select that keyboard. If you select your location right, you're going to get it right? So now here, this says your name. You're not going to put your actual name. Don't ever do that. That's stupid, right? Just the other day, I tried to install Debian on one of these things. It was terrible. It took the GNOME desktop, and that GNOME desktop asked me for my Google credentials. Don't do that. Don't provide that to an operating system. If an operating system asks you for that, it's an asshole. Don't trust it. So anyway, your name doesn't matter. I'm gonna say Cine because that's the name of the device, right? This is Cine. Meet Cine. So now password. If you're a Windows user, you're not going to be used to this. You require a password. Okay. You cannot have a Linux machine without a password. Even if it's something very simple as like just pushing the 1 key and that's your password, that still counts. A lot of people are going to say for security reasons you have to have a really powerful password. You don't have to. That being said, we're going to do that. But Linux requires a password. If you don't put a password, you have to reinstall. So we're going to say next. You can encrypt your home folder, by the way, if you want to. So here, this is the first part where I want you to deviate from what the installer wants you to do, right? So this automatic installer, it's very good when the disk is normal. When normal things are happening and it's just a standardized piece of machinery, automated installation is going to work. However, very few machines are actually like that. So if you use this automated installation, you're probably going to have a problem. Even with the Ubuntu. What we're going to do, even though we can do this and follow the instructions, we're going to say manual partitioning. Okay. Very important. We're going to say next. Well, let's say you don't want to throw away Windows and you're putting this on a machine that has Windows in it. If you don't really want to throw away Windows, you can use this. You're just going to have to move over some partitions. I'll show you what that looks like, how to do that. In the meantime, there are no partitions on these disks. So we're going to say yes. Normally, it's going to find the partition table if this is a real disk, and it's not going to have this problem. But because this is a virtual disk, it has not found a partition table. Okay, so we're going to say yes, create one. By the way, there's no data on it by definition. Okay. That's not terrible. We're going to launch gparted. Okay, this is a perfect example. So, delete. We do not want that. Okay, so the very first thing that we want to do, we want to move this swap partition over. Okay, so a operating system needs to be able to boot. In order to boot, the boot partition, which we're going to make, has to be on the very left side. Okay, there can't be anything in front of it. The reason is because what the bootloader is going to do is it's going to look in the first 500 megabytes and it's going to try to find everything that it needs to boot up your machine on that first 500 megabytes. All right, it will not look past it. So if you have anything that's in the way, you're going to need to move it. So let's go ahead and move this. This is in the way. We're going to right click on this and we're going to say resize / move. Okay. And we're going to grab it and move it over. There we go. And we're going to say yes. If you have a hard disk, which is the spinning plate, this is going to take a while. But if you have a digital disk or you have solid state, then it's going to be pretty fast. So we saw that was pretty fast, right? So then we're going to make our boot partition. Okay. Our boot partition is going to be 120 megabytes. We're going to say 120. There we go. And we're going to format it. We're going to make it fat. Okay. FAT32. There we go. We're going to say yes. There we go. So then we're going to make our computer. We're going to click this unallocated space and we're going to start doling it out. I have 100 gigabytes to work with. However much space you have to work with, you're going to have that to work with, right? So I'm going to take 100. I will divide it into thirds, more or less. Okay. So this is going to be 30 gigabytes. So that's going to be 30000. There we go. That's 30 gigabytes. Okay. There's also this file system type, right? I would say stay with ext4. Okay. Me being who I am, I want to switch things up. So I'll use XFS. Okay. So XFS or ext4 are fine, but I would say use ext4 for you. Okay. So we're going to say add. Next, we will add the rest of the computer. Okay. So we're going to say plus on this unallocated space. And this is going to be the rest of the computer. Okay. No. Here's the thing. I want to show you how to set up a swap partition. So you're going to take however much RAM you have, and you're going to add maybe 1 or 2 gigabytes, and that's going to be your swap partition. So let's make it easy. You're not going to have this. Delete this. Okay. So we have 70 gigabytes. Okay. We're going to say new. No, let's do it the right way. There we go. So this is the new one. And we're going to leave the rest to swap. Okay. So I have 3 gigabytes of RAM for this virtual machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 72 and I'm going to subtract 4. Okay. So I'm going to give it 1 more gigabyte than it actually needs. So that's 72, 71, 70, 69, 68. 68. Okay. And we're just going to hog the rest of this little bit of space. You don't have to. It could be like 68 or 68,000. More or less, that's how much I want it to be. And I want it to be XFS. There we go. Once again, this can be ext4, and in fact, you should do ext4. Okay, ext4 is fantastic at recovering files. If ext4 crashes, it's a fantastic thing. It turtles through everything. So that's why ext4. Personally, I like XFS because it's faster and it's much better at handling different. It's much better at handling very large amounts of data sets. Let me fix this, by the way. We need 4 gigabytes left. So this partition is not quite what it should be. So we're going to say resize / move. And we're going to go... We're just going to zeros. We're going to put zeros. Okay. And that should be fine. Zeros. Please. Help me. I can increase it, but for some reason I can't go less. If this happens, just do it again. Kill it and do it again. Yeah. So we're going to say 68,000 dead. 68 000. There we go. And we're going to say add. XFS. And I say don't use XFS because XFS is terrible if it crashes. I love flash drives. Everything that I need saved, I'll save it on a flash drive, right? So the computer crashing, I really don't care about it. But with the, yeah, we'll say new. There we go. We'll say new right there. And for this one, we're going to say swap. Where's swap? Linux-swap. There we go. This is the one you're looking for. Very, very, very important one. If you ignored me telling you to use ext4 and you use XFS instead, you need swap. You can't live without it. That's going to prevent your shit from falling apart. So we're going to use this green check mark. Apply all operations. You're going to say apply. And you're just going to sit for a while. Okay. while it does this. So then we can say close. You don't need to save the details, by the way. We're just gonna say close. All right. So then over here, we're gonna say refresh, and we're gonna see what happened. All right. So down here as DA4, this one, it says swap all across the board. So we're done with this one. Okay. All right. The very next thing we need to do is make sure that the computer understands that this is a bootloader, right? So we're gonna right click on the fat one, the FAT32, and we're gonna say, not format, I'm sorry. If you didn't format it to FAT32, make it fat here. Okay, so see, there's an option to do this right here. But we want to say manage flags. Okay. What I want to do is click this BLS boot and click this ESP. However, it doesn't let me do that. Let me show you. Yeah, see, it takes it away, right? But if I just click boot, it takes on the ESP as well. You need both the ESP and you need the boot. If you have problems, you're going to want to use the BLS boot. If you can, if the installer lets you, you want to use the BLS boot and do the ESP. But this one is the most important one. So boot and ESP. Okay. So there we go. And we're going to say, it doesn't let us. It didn't let us. We're going to say refresh. And you want to see that it says EFI and /boot/EFI. Okay, that tells you that you've done that right. Okay, so now we want to build our computer. We're going to right click on the smaller one. And we're going to say assign to /. And we're going to right click on the bigger one, say assign to home. Now, if you have a smaller machine, if this is less than maybe, I don't know, 11 gigabytes. Yeah, if you figure this one out to be less than like 11, 10, maybe 9 gigabytes you can get away with on Linux Mint, then just get rid of the home folder, make this one bigger. Just use one, right? And that's perfectly fine. In that case, you're not going to use the /home. You will use only this /, okay? And by the way, I just noticed this at ext4. I do not want it formatting as ext4. I want it as XFS. For you, that's going to be perfectly fine because you're the noob who's not that I'm any good at Linux, but no, or I want to use the XFS for my purposes. So ext4 perfectly fine. You're not going to notice the difference, especially if you're using an SSD. So now, looks dress looks good, and we're going to say next. Very important. Make sure that this is checked on, and don't worry about what it's doing. Okay, I'm going to say next, and you're not going to understand this. Don't worry about it. Install. So there we go, and this installer is just going to run. If you have any questions or concerns about the installation process, go ahead and leave them in the comments section. I will try to answer them for you. Or what's more likely going to happen is someone a whole lot more experienced than me is going to come in and answer that question for you. If you are one of those more experienced Linux users, I have a question. I use hard disks. That's right, I spin Rust, and that's really the only thing that I do. The reason that I do it is because of how hard disks can allow you to secure sensitive data. Is there a way to use a solid state drive and secure sensitive data? Really, other than completely destroying it, I can't find a single satisfactory resource for how to secure sensitive data on a solid state drive. So if you guys have a solution, I want to use an SSD. I'm just not able to because I can't give up that ability to properly store and dispose of sensitive data.